Hello.
Hello, hello.
The rough and rabbit roundly ran.
Welcome back. In this week's episode, I promise I'll do this more often and frequently. We got Kelin back for an old school The Jacob Wayne Show, where we go over a little bit of philosophy, bullshit memery, just the right amount of politics, cooking, and we do a little mini review of the movie Whiplash. So let's go. Welcome back to the Jacob Wayne Show. It's been a minute, but I'm back. Still unemployed, so that's part of the reason I was taking a break, but that job hunt is, as always, annoying as shit, so I figure why not do some things that I kind of enjoy, which is making this podcast for all the both of you. And let me explain something a little bit up top. What I'm going to do going forward is mostly movies. I'm going to be going over a shit ton of movies because that's the thing I can talk about anytime, anywhere, every week, every day probably. Whereas all the other subjects, I have to find something that percolates my interest. Politics is another one that I could probably talk about every day, but that's not the kind of podcast I want to do. There's plenty of people that have that job. They're informed. They're paid to be informed and be tortured by the bizarre bullshit that we deal with and hear about every day these days, it seems. And so I will spare you that as much as I can while touching on it every now and again if it's relevant. And if I feel like I got an interesting angle on it, or some of my buddies that come on do. Also up top is that I kind of played around with bringing back interviews, and so here's what we're going to do with that. I kind of put the word out there on the Instagram and got a bunch of messages, and I'll leave this person nameless, but one person hit me up. You know who you are if you actually listen to this podcast, and sent me a bunch of prerequisite questions about what they wanted to be asked, plugging all the information that they wanted plugged. And I realized that's not what I want to do with an interview on this podcast. What I would like to do is interview somebody and then get their perspective on different areas of culture and how that influences their art. So, for example, if you're a musician, I'd like to see how movies influence you as a musician, how video games do. Maybe some of those things actually got you into music, stuff like that. And that just wasn't what I think some people were thinking it was going to be. They thought it was going to be K-Rock radio, like, when did you realize you were going to be a guitar player? And maybe there'd be a little bit of that, but So one of these days I'm going to do it with my buddy Kelin, who will be joining me on the show today. But not today. Today we're going to go back and do an old school Jacob Wayne episode. That's where we kind of go over everything. And I'm going to do that with Kelin each day of the beginning of the month. Well, not each day, sorry. It's been a minute since I've done one of these. I'm going to do a episode with Kelin at the top of every month, kind of going over the last month, because I realized when I was doing the music episodes with him that I was struggling to find new albums and new releases that I gave any shits about. I love music, I love listening to it, but you guys don't necessarily want to kick back and hear about how I've been going back over the Beatles or listening to Tom Waits again. Like, that's pretty much where a lot of my listening's been. If it's not that, it's stuff, that's old still. It's like from the 90s or 2000s or ambient stuff. And I figure you give it about a month, we got enough time to accumulate some things and make some suggestions. I also realized that Kelin and I have pretty different tastes. So then a lot of those episodes ended up just being like, have you heard that one? It's like, no. Have you heard that one? No. And so maybe it gives us a little more time to listen to each other's new finds and actually digest them a bit. And yada, yada, yada. So, in short, the podcast is mostly going to be movies from here on out. But maybe a couple interviews. Write me an email if you're into that. If you would like to be interviewed in the way that I interview Kelin in the future. And then we're going to do some old school Jacob Wayne episodes where we dive into bullshit memery, philosophy, some politics, maybe this day in history, stuff like that. And that's what we're going to do today. And with me, once again, is my boy, Kelin. How you doing, man?
Doing good.
Good, good.
Good to be back.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
Indeed. But, yeah,
Let me
I'm
get some
glad you're still
water in
going.
here. What have you been up to lately?
Oh, just winding down. It's into the winter season. Kind of all the gigs, play a bunch of gigs all summer, outdoor stuff. And now that that's all going away, it's quieting down, which is nice. But it's kind of funny. I've noticed there's kind of an inverse relation with all my gigs that are in restaurants, like weekly gigs. The tipping gets a lot better. People
Oh,
start
yeah.
like I'm not a Scrooge and start throwing out them hundos. So
Hell yeah.
yeah, happy Christmas.
Yeah, definitely. It's nice that you're getting compensated that way. I'll try to not make this a bitch fest, but this has been the worst holiday season of my entire art thing, I think. I think
Oh damn.
motherfuckers are poor as hell right now, myself included.
Yep.
So it's just like I kind of cleared out my schedule. Like, well, I've gotten crazy stressed out in the past. Let's make sure I'm like not diving in too heavy into anything in like October, November, December, and just nothing. Just fucking tumbleweeds. So I'm glad to hear that you're getting tips on the guitar playing. It's probably easier to kind of like, I'm just playing for you while you're eating dinner, huh? And they're like, yeah,
Come
yeah, you're
on.
right. It's just like, and yeah,
Is
it,
it-
it is different. You're like, you want this painting for $300? Like, a lot of people don't have that to sling around, so. But yeah, so I'm definitely kind of fucking bah humbug at the moment.
Oh, that makes sense. That's
But yeah,
rough when it doesn't go in where you're expecting it.
that is the life in the arts, um,
Yep.
which is why I'm doing the old job hunting thing. But that is always like kind of the element of that as well, where they're like, "Hey, do you want to work at this insurance company that has people calling in to yell at you all day from 9 to 5 every day and still work on your art and do music?" I'm like, yeah, no, it ain't exactly the right fit. So it is goofy, but we'll figure it out. With
Yep.
that being said, let's figure out how to do this again. We'd usually top it off with what you're drinking, but I'm just having some water and coffee. How about you?
I actually am having an old favorite, non-alcoholic. That's what the usual what you drinking was at nighttime. So, um, I've got a Sunkist cherry limeade. I didn't even know they still made these. So,
I didn't know they ever made those.
yeah, it's
Sunkist
been years.
Cherry Limeade.
That's pretty tasty.
All right,
Would be tastier with some booze, but it ain't bad.
sure. Is it one of those zero sugar ones, or are you just going full sugar?
Oh, I just get the old stuff.
Yeah.
I
Think,
I feel worse if I eat a drink diet soda. Makes me feel funky, but I just don't go too often. It
hmm,
just comes with the sandwich at Old Gristmill, so I snagged one.
There you go. But go ahead and mark that down as one of your stage names, Full Sugar. It'd be pretty
Hell yeah,
good.
I like it.
Total segue. I'm looking at my face in the camera right now.
Uh huh.
And so I was watching the Bucks versus the Miami Heat the other night. Don't worry, we're not going to dive into a bunch of sports talk. But the basketball player, for those that don't know, Damian Lillard, went from the Portland Trailblazers to the Milwaukee Bucks, and he was looking pretty fresh, like out there on the court. You know, just looking pretty good. And I was noticing his beard cut. I was like, oh, I like that. And so what it is he kind of like shaves a little bit up on the top of the mustache, you know, a little bit to make sure it's not curling under the top lip. What's that little spot in the middle of your lip? The little divot? What do you call that?
Yeah. Oh, what is that called?
Yeah, I don't know.
The the frenulum.
Something like that. But he had that kind of like trimmed out. And then the beard comes down and then is like kind of controlled on the cheeks a bit. But then there's like, you know, shortened on the sides. And then there's the little tuft on the chin. And so I was like, oh, let me try that out. And then I, in classic form, came in too far, went down a little too far. So just had to correct and balance everything out. And so now my beard looks like shit. And
Um,
it's just extra in that, like, ah, great, big old pasty, pale face. And like,
uh,
god damn it. And I was like looking back at like how my beard was a couple days ago. I was like, no, I knew. What the fuck was I doing? That's how to trim
uh,
it. So yeah, fuck me for trying to sexify myself. So I am not full sugar right now. I'm like
you're back to
one
beginning
eighth
beard.
sugar right now, man. Like my
Uh,
beard's off, broke as fuck. Trying to do a podcast. Anyway, I promise I won't keep bitching.
well,
Any fun food adventures?
oh, there's a spot that's been in Ibis for a while that has some awesome sandwiches and pastries and such, and they finally moved to their own place, and they're making they're where the Italian place was.
Mm-hmm.
So for people who don't know, it was a Logan staple for like my dad went there when he was in college, and
Mm.
it just barely closed a couple of years back. Another place tried there; they were really good too. They're actually up the road now, but this new place is La Croissant, and they have the old steak and egg sandwich back. They got a banh mi, they got a porchetta sandwich, an Italian spicy. Ooh, they got some amazing food. So
All right.
that's the latest hop spot in Logan.
So that ran by Amber.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know her super well, but she's like kind of a acquaintancy friend from back in the day. So
Yeah,
all the best to
same.
her. If you're in Logan and you listen to this, then go check it out.
For real.
Um, Once again, being broke, I'm just cooking at home, doing stuff like that.
You're
Have you
cooking some
used
tasty
in?
stuff though.
Oh yeah, you seen anything that I've been cooking lately that stands out to you?
Man, it all looks good. There was one like man, I can't remember what it was in it now though. Some kind of stir fry bean thing.
Let's
I'll
see
go roll
here.
and find it. But yeah, all kinds of tasty stuff.
Yeah, I'll do a quick little summation here. Obviously, this isn't the most engaging subject for a podcast, but
Yeah, the pork, egg, and rice. Yeah.
pork, egg, and rice. Oh, the
Ooh.
katsu pork.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Doing the old katsu thing. That's one little thing I can talk about. And then I'll mention a couple other things I made. But little things I've learned from cooking. This could be a tiny little segment. Is I've done the katsu chicken. Katsu, I believe, just means cutlet in Japanese. But it's usually like a breaded, flattened piece of chicken or pork. Don't come at me if that isn't the super traditional understanding of it because I don't really give a fuck about tradition. I am pretty into experimentation and cultural appropriation with acknowledgments. And so for the longest time, I was trying like the lower carb approaches to it, which is using stuff like almond flour or chickpea flour or sweet potato starch for the dredging. And, those all tasted good and they were fine. But I decided the other day, um, kind of been scraping by a little bit of money to just like put together like some tasty meal. And so I found a good deal on some pork. I was like, all right, I'll split this up into two meals. Used half of the pork to do katsu and another one to do peri peri pork. And I'll get into that in a minute. But the katsu, I was like, fuck it. I'm just going to actually use regular all purpose flour. Dip it in the flour, dip it in an egg, dip it in some panko breadcrumbs. And I was like, oh, that's why this is the regular recipe, because it just was delicious. And
Oh,
yeah, just flatten that out, marinate it in some soy sauce, red pepper flakes, some cooking wine, a little bit of Chinese sauce, like five spice, pepper, salt, and then yeah, make sure they're smashed. We'll reiterate that because it just helps soak it up and tenderize it. Then yeah, you dredge it in that, the flour, the egg, the panko, throw it in the air fryer, cook your rice, fry an egg, throw that on top. Super tasty. The
damn.
peri peri pork, you can just find peri peri sauce around. It's not the easiest thing to find, but that's like sort of a tomatoey, the peri peri pepper or something like that. It's a African pepper, and so it's peri peri dishes are sort of like a mixture between Portuguese and African cuisine, and it's like pretty spicy, but it's like tomato rice. So I kind of went with almost like a Spanish rice approach, like threw in corn and tomatoes, lime juice, lemon, pepper, all that stuff, and then you marinate the pork in the peri peri sauce and the lime juice. Throw that in the air fryer, take that out. Once again, fry an egg. Throw that on top, a little more peri peri sauce and some cilantro, and that's super super tasty.
Ooh, that sounds delicious.
Mm-hmm. And I guess the only other thing really worth mentioning, without this turning into just a food podcast, is I made meatball wraps the other day. Might seem kind of like gee whiz, professor, but that was actually really fucking good. Keeps the like heftiness of a meatball sub down a little bit. You get all the flavor, the
Oh,
mozzarella, the pizza sauce. I put in a little bit of pesto, the meatballs, wrapped that up in a big old tortilla, and I was like, wow, this is not far off from just a regular meatball sub, which is not too surprising, but I hadn't thought about it until I tried it
yeah.
and it was good. And
No, I've never
then
heard of that.
once again, another keto thing with the pizza. It's another thing where you like make crust with almond crust or almond flour or chickpea flour, or you make chicken crust. And once again, those have all been tasty and interesting. But I'm gonna try this like crustless pizza thing that's just done in a casserole pan. I haven't done that yet. But the other day I was making green beans, and what I did is I threw in some corn, a little bit of bacon, and I needed like a little bit of sauce to kind of pull it all together. So I put a little bit of pizza sauce and some Worcestershire sauce,
Worcester.
Worcestershire, and put that in the casserole pan and threw that in the air fryer and ate that. And I was like, green beans are not a bad substitute for pizza crust if you're trying to do something a little healthier. So I'm gonna
Huh.
try green beans, mushrooms, bacon, pineapple, jalapeno with a little bit of pizza sauce, and then add mozzarella. And I'm thinking it's gonna be good, but that probably sounds a little strange, yeah.
Well, I know it does sound strange, but it makes sense. You just especially where like pizza is so nice for the shareability, but if you're just making it for yourself, it's kind of turns into a little more like a casserole. That sounds really good.
Mm-hmm. And I will say this to kind of yeah, it's been a while since I've recorded. You can tell. Um, yeah, the thing I've discovered with doing a lot more cooking at home is sometimes you get these ideas, they pop into your head, you're like, does green bean go with that? And more often than not, most foods go with most foods. It's kind of gee whiz, but it's like, there's a way to make like peanut butter and green beans work. Sometimes it's about what you put in between to like combine them. And obviously, some combinations are like, what? Like, it's not the best, but when you eat it, you're like, wow, all right. Like, that's passable. So, the passability is what I've been kind of amazed by. You can combine some crazy stuff, and you're like, right, if your levels of stuff is good, then it can work. Like, peanut butter
Yeah.
and ramen was like, oh, yeah, it's kind of like Thai. But what I notice is, yeah, it's like if you overdo one thing, that's where you can really fuck up a dish. Cause I made some just beans and like crumbled bacon to just make bean, bacon, cheese burritos, like really basic. But
Hmm.
I over spiced the beans with like garlic salt and a couple other things. So then it was edible, it was good, but it was just had that too much salt taste. It's
Yeah.
like, I fucked them up. So I usually like to measure by heart, like my spices. And I think that one I just, rather than doing the classic minced garlic and then just salt separate, I got some garlic salt and got overzealous, thinking the
Oh
garlic
yeah.
was going to be more than the actual salt. So,
Yeah.
uh, and I guess I'll add one more little bit to that is you know I love to go out to eat and try different things and have people cook for me and stuff, but when you start cooking at home, especially when you start making really tasty dishes with like canned products and you're like, well, this is really good still, it is harder to go out to certain places and pay $20 for a plate that you're like, I can make this better at home.
Yeah. That
and
is
it's
nice.
and it's so it's there's a balance in there somewhere, but yeah, I ain't gonna lie, it's couple restaurants that I used to love going to in Fort Collins. You start looking at what the bill is and how that tasted and what the portions are and then what your options are at home. You're like, well, damn, like the charm kind of got taken out of it a little bit. But what's
Yeah.
the saying is, don't go out to eat unless you're ready to tip like 25%, maybe 20.
Yep.
It's just like, yeah, going out to eat is an event, and you should be prepared for it. It's like, otherwise, yeah, you should probably cook at home, and it's easy to do. You can learn. There's tons of YouTube tutorials. Um, but and then that's the other element too. There's like certain things I have no interest in making. Maybe I'll get the hair up my ass to try it, like baking. I just don't care. I kind of went down
Yep.
the road of like maybe I could make my own sourdough bread, all that stuff, and I'm like, nah. If I want bread, it's because I want a sandwich, and if I want a sandwich, there's plenty of awesome sandwich spots in Fort Collins. I'll just make it a weekend treat. Sushi. It's like I don't want to make homemade sushi. Just let the professionals do it, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well,
But yeah,
the sandwiches are some of the cheaper places too. They're actually the affordable place to go out. So
that is
that's
true.
one. Or those like make some of the most sense of all of them.
Well, sure.
Like Old Grist Mill is insane. Like the guy told me how much. I was like, wait, what? And I eat there pretty regularly. I still get surprised. Like,
Yeah. No, I kind of pride myself in this podcast being like critical of stuff, but we try to be as nice as possible.
Mhm.
Because there is that. This kind of segues a little bit into some other sections, but there's tons of YouTube podcasts or shows, whatever you want to call it, that they're like over positive, like everything's awesome, and oh, I can't wait till that comes out, and oh my gosh, and whoa, and the camera's zooming in on them, and you're like, man, fuck off, like shit is not that awesome. But there's also the flip side where there's the YouTube videos where it's just like, here's 30 reasons why that movie you loved isn't lovable, and you're
Uh,
like, man, fuck you too.
yeah.
So there's like somewhere in between there where I'm trying to ride that line. So as far as food goes, I kind of like to shout out the ones that are awesome. Maybe don't mention the little tiny nitpicky things unless it's really relevant. And, just kind of, if something sucked or kind of like, was disappointing, like leave them nameless a little bit. So, do you remember when you were visiting and we went to that one sandwich shop that I'm going to leave nameless? It
That we'd
has
never gone to, right?
we'd never gone to, yeah.
Yeah.
Had the artwork on the wall, all that.
Yeah.
Well, I guess a lot of places do, but like the walls were painted.
Yeah.
Really tasty sandwich, super tasty. But then, like when you got the bill and you looked at the portion of it and you're eating it, you're like, that's a good example of the oh, I could have made this at home, like
Hmm.
and like for $20, it's just like you could get all these ingredients for $20 and like have three or four of these sandwiches, like not far off from this, if not maybe a little better, because you put that little bit of extra love in it.
Yeah.
But you go to a place like Chiba Hut, and you're like, that's a awesome sandwich. It's like,
Indeed.
and then it's exactly what I'm in the mood for. And not to criticize the spot, but Italian place back in Logan when I lived there. Just the tiny little complaint I will have with that is that the sandwiches were amazing, but the portions was like such a small sandwich for the price. You were like, damn
Yeah.
it. Like I can't keep you in business because this just doesn't weigh out.
Yeah. It was hard to go there too often for that reason.
Yeah. So I'll reiterate one more time. I think that's a key these days is it's portions. It's like I'll throw down 20 for like, all right, that's really filling and it's super tasty. Give me that. Or it's like maybe not the best, but you can go to like Backdoor Grill and get all you can eat wings. You just slap down a 20. It's like that's pretty solid. Know what game
Oh
I'm
no.
playing. Or, there's the little like you get a free beer with the burger deals that are like everywhere. You're like, yeah, all right, I'll take that. And just little things like that, I think, really help keep a place in business. Because one restaurant went out of business here recently. I mean, they do a lot here because I think Fort Collins is a very foodie place. Like tons of restaurants open, a bunch of them don't make it. But one went out that was really tasty, but they were kind of doing this like hipstery take on a cuisine that you kind of want done a little more fancy, which is okay. But that's
Uh
where
huh.
you're like, maybe drop your prices because I'm not going to keep coming here for college kid ramen.
Yeah.
Like it's just like it was good, but holy shit, like over $20 to get a drink with it. It's like no, no,
Yeah. That's a little crazy.
yeah. But that gets into inflation and all that stuff. So we'll segue into why Biden shouldn't be reelected and we should get Trump back, right?
But
I mean, these
I thought
prices,
you
it's all
didn't
Biden's
like
fault, and
inflation.
so we should just get Trump back. Like, everything will be fine.
But
I
it
didn't
wasn't
like the
fine
way
then.
Biden handled the Hamas Israeli situation, so let's get Trump back in there because he knows how to handle that. Right?
I don't know.
I would love it. Anybody who's just listening to this for the first time, like, fuck this guy.
Uh, Gotta go back. Got to do your history.
Anything in the news you really want to talk about? Worthwhile? It's worth mentioning.
Well, I heard some asshole died.
Yeah,
What?
Henry
That's about
Kissinger. Let me find the quote I saw on Reddit that I sent to our buddy Dan. Oh, yeah, Dan on the show.
Yep.
Y'all know him. But he like sent me a celebratory like Henry Kissinger is dead.
Yep.
I feel like if he could have, he would have added like a guy doing a helicopter with his dick just in celebration. Um, yeah, the quote is, "I hope wherever he is, he's also dead there too." that's
Uh,
that's a good summation of the guy. Rather than us going over it on the podcast, I just suggest you look up why he's such a piece of shit, and perhaps why Laotians, Cambodians, and Vietnamese would be dancing in the streets. Perhaps maybe it's too
yep.
long ago. The younger generation has kind of moved on a little bit, but yeah, fuck that guy.
Indeed.
All I can say, and this is kind of the weird, tragic state we're in, is he did do some kind of good work with the international relations between America and China during the Nixon administration, opening up relations and talks, which is super important.
Uh huh.
And he wrote a pretty good book called On China that went over that. And the only reason I feel like that's worth mentioning, I'm not trying to balance out the opinions on this piece of shit, but just the fact that he even contributed a little bit of that, where you look at Trump now or Giuliani or Mitch McConnell, and it's like, what did you do other than just be a hateful piece of shit?
Yep.
Like, even Kissinger or Nixon or Cheney, as fucking awful as they are, it's like
They
they
did some
still
stuff.
kind of sort of believe in the America thing and
Yeah.
how our government functions.
Yep.
And so it was interesting when Dan said to me, like, Kissinger's dead, hell yeah. And I'm like, that would have been awesome back in 2004. Yeah, 20 years ago, 2003, let's go there. And I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah. And now it's just like, okay.
About
So
time.
he's like, it was 100, so there's that. And then also, just, it couldn't have been anybody else. I'm not going to say any names, but you know. They come in threes, and I can't help but think the next one's going to be Jimmy. But it's like Rosalind Carter, Kissinger, Jimmy Carter. It's like, that's not. Come on, what the fuck? But, you know,
Sure did.
maybe the God that isn't there will surprise me and take
Mhm.
somebody I'm like, yeah! um, we're not totally segueing away from news or anything, but that does bring up something interesting that's worth mentioning is in the year 2024, I will not be drinking. Um, I'll make a random post about it for anybody who gives a shit, but this is not, I'm going sober, like, sober life. And it's like, no, I'm taking a year off because alcohol has gotten in the way a little bit in terms of my goals, which the main ones is sleeping properly and this belly I'm working on. And yeah, it's not the best for my mood when I go kind of hog wild with it. So I kind of thought 2024 is an election year. There's going to be a lot of crazy bullshit flying around. I'm working on some health stuff, some sleep stuff, some job hunting, as always. So yeah, I'll take a year off just to see if I can do it. It's more of a Brundlefly kind of experiment, you know? Like, what's going to happen to my body if I just don't drink for a year? And the hope is to
Mhm.
get back to a healthier relationship with it. Like, I'll have two scotches tonight as I watch the film, or, you know, that kind of thing. And I'm definitely willing to admit that if I can't do a whole year without drinking, or if I come back to it and end up just hitting it way too hard again, maybe I shouldn't drink. That's totally a possibility. But, you know, alcohol is definitely a social lubricant for me.
Yeah.
And it helps me sit through concerts because I don't like going to concerts that much. It's not really the music, it's just that I can't lay on a couch away from people and take it in. It's you gotta stand there, knees locked a little bit. And we're like, well, why don't you walk around and talk to people? It's just like, come the fuck on. Going to the concert is a social event, and I don't enjoy them that much. I'd rather go sit in a theater or something like that. So, without alcohol, that's going to
Yeah.
be rough. There's going to be a lot of little things. But why I bring that up is the one time I get to drink is if Mitch goes or Trump goes.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so
In the party.
yeah, I'm like, do some shambongs. I'm like, taking a break from taking a break. We're, we're gonna enjoy ourselves tonight.
Hell yeah.
And yeah, I think that's the only two. Everybody else, there's plenty. Like if Giuliani goes, I'm like, cool, but whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. So yeah, anything else in the news worth going over? Elon Musk is a fascist. The news isn't properly covering Trump. They're talking about him like he's an actual legitimate candidate.
Yep.
Talking way more shit on Biden than on Trump, which is just fucking wild to me.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there's plenty to talk shit on Biden about, but of course, it's like we are at a stage where it's like, yeah, I would prefer Bernie or AOC or something, but this is like voting for a pile of dog food that will keep America the way America is, or a fucking Nazi.
Yep.
So it's like, yeah, it's like,
Pretty easy pick.
it's not complicated. People are trying as hard as they can to complicate it, especially the news media, because they fucking need the clicks and the business. So I think that's all I have to say about that. Gotta like kind of check out a little bit the next little while. I'll read what
Yep.
I need to read, but like how this people think this is worth like discussion or like, well, what if we did? Like, no, shut the fuck up. Vote Biden.
Yeah. Indeed. We're there.
Which does suck. It
It
does
does.
really suck that it's just like no nuance, just no, vote Biden. You asshole.
Yeah.
Um yeah, do you want to say what's another segment we usually do?
Oh man.
It's been
Let's
a
see.
while. I was thinking about uploading the stings, but I want to shorten them. So it's
Oh
like
gosh.
bap, bap, wada, bada, bap, bow. And then I think I got one. You
All right.
remember the fucking bullshit platitude meme thing we used to do?
Oh yeah. What was that one?
It's kind of like
Philosophies or
wrapped
something
in
like
with philosophy, I think.
that. Yeah.
I
Okay.
think I uploaded one. Let me
You
find
did.
it. Okay.
Said my channel.
All right, so a little bit of preface here. I've been separating out the pages I have on social media and the Instagrams. I got the Jacob Wayne Show, which is a podcast, my personal account, my art account, and then Gamma. So Gamma, I've been trying to have only follow and interact with music for the most part. The art account with artists and like businesses and museums or stuff that might want to show art. The Jacob Wayne Show is like all the pop culture shit. So comedians, movies, sports teams, different countries, cooking. And then my personal account is like cooking stuff for my own, like, oh, I could try that, or just friends and family. And I'm trying to make that one a little more private. Even though lately I've like, fuck it, make that post public, because whatever. Um, so with the Gamma Pop page, when what I've been doing is unfollowing pages that my personal account used to follow, and
Oh
then
yeah.
going to the other page and having that page follow that. So, say there's a band from Boston that my personal page used to follow, but they never interact with my shit. But I still kind of
Yeah.
like them. I'm like, yeah, have Gamma Pop follow them. So it completely fucks with the algorithm for the feed on each one, which has been kind of interesting. So
Yeah.
I'm working on Gamma Pop, but Gamma Pop absolutely has the worst feed right now because it's all self promotion, band, musician stuff. And they're like, follow
Oh
for
no.
a follow. Like my page, I'll like yours. All that shit. And
Oh god.
then Facebook added this part where it's at followers. So if they put that in
Oh
their
no.
post, then it gives a notification to anybody that follows their page. And if you do that, I'm looking right in the camera. If you do that, I'm immediately unfollowing you. Do
Good
not
on you.
at follower me when you're like showing pictures of you recording in the studio. Like, I don't fucking care.
Yeah.
It's like when you have a new album out, you're like, please help us get the word out. Cool. Still, don't at followers me. I won't unfollow you for that one, but a picture of your dog and you at followers to make sure everybody gets a buzz on their phone. They're like, see my dog? I'm like, fuck you.
Gone.
Yeah. So a little bit of
Excellent.
the follow for a follow, the at followers thing has gone away. I think maybe Facebook even did that on purpose, so there wasn't like this unionizing of the different pains. That's a weird little conspiracy theory I got.
Ooh.
But now all the bands are replacing a lot of that stuff with like motivational memery, which I fucking hate. So I'm gonna read you this one. I'll leave the band that posted it out of it. Um, I can almost guarantee once you start working on every part of you, you'll start feeling better, looking better, and doing better. Happy Friday.
Uh,
How's that make you feel?
Annoyed.
Go ahead. I'll sip some coffee and elaborate a little bit.
I don't know. I just wonder what all these memes are trying to get at. Like, what? Start working on every part of you. Like, what does that mean?
All right, let's break this down. I can almost guarantee once you start working on every part of you, the. See, if he had come out and said, I can guarantee once you start working on every part of you, that is. I can
Less
guarantee
than
that
100.
immediately throws you off, so he had to put I can
Yeah.
almost guarantee,
Almost.
which makes it soft, but it really doesn't soften it as much as he thinks it does. It
Yeah.
implies that he's this amazing thought guru. Like, and that is what I love. Like, who is that? Was it Russell Brand who just came out and had all these accusations against him?
Yeah, I think so.
Like, yeah, it's exactly that type of shit. Like the thought guru who's like, I've figured this stuff out. Let me tell you how to get your shit in order. Oh, you were also molesting people. Okay, I got it. You're like a priest or
Yeah.
like anything else. So, once again, not going to name names, but you and I have some mutual acquaintances and friends that's what they've tasked themselves to do with their social media. Like, we're going
Yeah.
to get up and go and we're going to motivate. And it's like, go fuck yourself. I know you. You do not have your shit in order. And that's okay. But, like,
Exactly.
shut the fuck up. Like, when you start working on every part of you, how about you work
Or
on not posting stupid, annoying shit? Work on that part of you.
the whole thing about this post is all you need to realize is like feeling better. I don't know. Like that's you do have to take care of yourself so you feel good, and that's just sleeping and eating, all that stuff. But looking better, fuck everyone, and doing better, fuck everyone. Like that's how you feel. Look better and be better. Like don't compare yourself to people. Forget all about other humans. It's fine. You're doing great.
So
That's
I
the motivation.
this is a thing that you and I should say to each other as friends. A reworking of this is, hey man, like if you don't eat that and eat that, you'll feel better. And then I mean, hey, you're a good-looking motherfucker. Be comfortable in your own skin.
Yeah.
That's it. It's just like own yourself. You're like everybody's version of what's sexy is subjective, so just fucking own what you are and own what you like. And try to eat healthy, get enough sleep. You'll feel better.
Yeah.
I can almost guarantee, though, Kelin,
Uh,
if you take yourself, separate it out, you kind of like drawn and quarter yourself emotionally, and you take those parts and you look at each one and then glue them back together, you'll be a changed man for the better.
You'll be looking into the face of God.
I say, wow, that's the face of God. All right, yeah. Anyway, that was the annoying fucking like shut
Yeah.
up. Like I've been and of course, it's like when I'm broke and I fucked up the cut of my beard. I'm just getting some annoying like music band news over the last couple of days. I'm just like, ugh, fuck you. Like I know, it's like I know I'm sexy. I'm good at bass. Shut up.
Uh,
Just let me like moan and groan my way through a day, and I'll be fine. I'll get it out because that's human.
yep.
But
Indeed.
I think, yeah, that's worth visiting real quick. I'll pull that up. That's relevant. As I posted a little comic strip thing on my personal page, but I made it public. Let's find it. The comic is these two dudes that I guess have arrived in hell, and one of them's like, "It's even worse than I imagined." And then there's all these people walking around in fire and brimstone, smiling, just being like, let's be proactive. Growth mindset, self care webinar, mindful Mondays, delete negativity.
Uh,
And that one got 9 laugh reacts. That's the most laugh reacts I've had in a hot minute. So something tells me I'm not the only one that hates that
no,
shit.
the people are with you.
Yes, I try. Jacob Wayne is for the people. Um, got any other philosophy stuff? Got anything good?
Oh no, I haven't. I haven't been keeping an eye out for him as much though, so I'm gonna have to start. But I'll watch for more.
Yeah, I created that little text channel for you, so we'll just start plugging them in there. We'll be a little more prepped. We're kind of winging it today.
Indeed.
Got you don't got any Dear Jacob Wayne? Nothing ready to go there.
I don't think so. I will go pull up just to see if I happen to have an old one saved, but I don't think I do.
Okay. Yeah. Deal with a little bit of silence here, folks, while we pull up the last bit of this pod for you. How much time you got left?
I gotta be going pretty soon here, so
Okay. Let's do a quick this day in history. See if you got any Dear Jacob Wayne, and then go over Whiplash a little bit and call it good.
sounds good.
In fact, we could just skip the Dear Jacob Wayne unless you're finding something that looks juicy.
No, I don't. I thought I had a folder, but I do not. So
All right, cool.
maybe.
Real quick, we'll say this day in history, November 30th, in 1966, Barbados, an island nation in the Caribbean situated about 100 miles east of the Windward Islands, had gained international self-rule and achieved its full independence from Britain. So, fuck the crown, fuck Britain. I love the UK and the people, but the history of the crown and the government there, fuck them.
Yep,
Good job, Barbados.
indeed.
Mark Twain was born November 30th, 1835. Died
Nice.
April 21st, 1910, at the age of 74. I think some. Wow. it says the dates here, so I'm assuming these are birthdays. November 30th, you got Terrence Malick, Ridley Scott, Ben Stiller, and Winston Churchill.
Wow. That's an
Yeah.
interesting pile.
And in the
Oh.
future, we will go over more of this day in history, but nothing is really sticking out. So we'll just move on.
Word.
Um. So we're not gonna do Dear Jacob Wayne. We're not gonna do that. Any quick?
Not my segment.
Not my tempo. It's not my segment. Was I rushing or was I dragging? Before we get into that, that's a cherry on top. Any real quick music recommendations? Remastered
For
Infinity by Devin Townsend. Go check that out. Somebody was that we know is very excited about that.
it's been brought up. Yep.
Yeah. Um, oh, yeah. I got to mention this. This will be my one, and then you just say one, and then we'll do Whiplash.
Okay.
Oh fuck! Where did it go though? If you got yours ready to go, just go ahead and jump in with it.
Well, mine's another old one. I don't know if I've ever heard it before or not actually, but it's another James Taylor album. I was
Mm,
going off about Hourglass on another episode, I'm sure, and he's got another one around I think it's like the same era, 1991.
okay.
That it's called New Moonshine, and it's got some tasty stuff.
Cool.
There's one
I will
song I
try out James Taylor.
it's tasty.
I'm. I feel like I'm mixing. Oh yeah, I'm mixing him up with Neil Young. And
Oh.
there's the one guy once. We're doing a lot of like can't name that person in this episode, but you remember the one fucker who told me he's like Neil Young's the best musician that ever lived, and how much I was like, fuck you and fuck Neil Young. Then I know that's not true. Like, but maybe I need to listen to some Neil Young. But
Uh-huh.
so once
No,
again, I'm already jumbling it up. It's not Neil Young. It is who?
James Taylor.
James Taylor. Somebody's probably screaming at the fucking speakers right now, like they're different. James Taylor, I'll
uh,
give that a listen. Is Moon Hooch? What is it?
New Moonshine
New Moonshine.
or Hourglass is the other one that I really dig. So
Cool. I only said Moon Hooch because that's actually kind of a sweet
that would have been a good
trio.
album.
No, yeah, I think it's some of the guys that have played with Les Claypool, like the sax and stuff, like improv jammed out, jazzy stuff.
Oh.
Yeah, Moon Hooch, if I remember correctly. My one recommendation is YouTube recommended a cover of a Radiohead song called Weird Fishes by Leanne LaHavis. Have you heard of her?
I have not.
She's a UK musician. I highly recommend going and watching that live performance. It's Glasbury or Live Performance 2022, something like that. But just look up Leanne LaHavis, Weird Fishes. It's a really
Ooh,
awesome Radiohead cover. Very R&B, smooth and sexy. Rest of
nice.
the album is very good, but I ain't gonna lie, it kind of falls back into R&B, talking about I love you so much, I need your loving, come fuck me, and God's watching, I love God.
Huh.
You're like, eh. It's
That's
like,
weird.
but it's a very tasty album, but it is just kind of like, all right, love and
Enough.
God,
Ah.
got it.
Eh,
But the Radiohead cover is really awesome. So,
nice.
yeah, Whiplash. What did? Why don't you go ahead and tell me what you thought of Whiplash, Kellen?
I I mean, I guess if you watched it and like just completely ignored everything except for like what the camera did, like
Yeah,
it did some interesting things. But other than that, I didn't like the whole plot is just like not only not true in any way that I've ever heard of. It's also
yeah,
like a terrible, terrible takeaway.
yeah,
Because the whole idea of the movie was like it worked. And that's not, no.
Yeah,
That's not
throwing
how.
a chair at a guy's head is the way to jazz. It's like, no, no, it fucking isn't. All the old jazz musicians that did that to anybody, if that's what they're actually referencing, are drug addled, toxic people that
Yeah.
did some great music, but holy shit, that is not how to do that.
Yeah. And I don't think their music excuses that behavior in any way.
No.
Uh,
They. Obviously, this is a spoiler alert for this movie, but he's an asshole to this student through the entire thing. He finally, like, pushes him too hard. Is too much of an abusive asshole that should have been fired years before that main character even shows up. And
yep.
then the guy just can't quite let him go and can't quite quit you. And he like goes to the jazz bar where he's like playing piano and has like a heart to heart conversation about how like that's the only way you really care. It's like so and so had Charlie Parker, or probably wasn't Charlie Parker, but like Charlie Parker throw a chair at his head, and then he went out and he played this trumpet solo, and it was the best trumpet solo that's ever existed. You're like, well, it's subjective, and also fuck that, it's stupid.
just like just like you did to the Neil Young. Anytime somebody's like, "It's the best thing ever," then you can immediately be like, "Fuck you."
I'm glad you connected the dots there. I wasn't even thinking about that.
Uh,
But what makes that even worse is that they don't have the heart to heart there. He then, why don't you come play at this thing? And he comes out to play, and then the teacher tries to fuck him. So he's like, "You remember that heart to heart? I was lying. Fuck you." And then he comes out and says, "No, fuck you, teacher." And he just does this insanely long like drum solo. And then like suddenly the teacher's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, that's my tempo." And
That's
you're
what
just
I meant.
like, whereas at the beginning of the movie, he's like, "Was I rushing or was I dragging?" And he's like slapping him. Huh? Was it fast or slow? It's not my tempo. He's like, "For the last
Uh,
father fucking time. That's not my tempo." And he's just like, man, fuck this piece of shit.
yeah,
And
it's terrible.
we will reiterate, beautifully shot, paced really well, really good acting. It's just the characters, the plot, the writing, what
The
it tries to
concept,
say about music is fucking stupid.
indeed.
And why we singularly like did this one was people love this movie. It's like you go on Letterboxd and a lot of stuff, it's just 5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars. And
Yeah.
Dan, who we all know and love on this podcast, was just like so fucking irate. And it's just like, yeah, I know. It's like, but it's just like, well, why? It's like, why? And I think after we kept like trying to jump through the frustration and like really look at it, it's because it's like a Rocky movie.
yeah.
It's like it's this guy like just fucking training and his hands are bleeding, and there's just this fucking asshole he has to beat. And then there's the big battle, there's the big fight at the end, and the boom credits. And it is a very effective pacing and structure. But it's just like that's not jazz. That's not how that works. That's not how music works.
You can also just practice. You don't need to get in a crazy car accident and still walk to the gig.
Yeah, and we talked about that, like his obsession with being a drummer for this particular school that I still can't. I remember Juilliard. I don't remember the fucking name of this school. And maybe you should if you're a jazz musician, but whatever. It's like he was really good. So it's like, oh, that didn't work out because you had a horrible, abusive teacher. Go play in any jazz trio in New York and you'll get gigs fast and you'll be
Yeah.
successful. It's like, what the fuck is this? Like, and it does make me curious about I'm sure that exists on YouTube of boxers that watch Rocky and they're just sitting there staring at the screen like this is fucking bullshit.
Yep.
That is not how that shit works. But I almost guarantee like for Rocky and actual boxing, the disconnect isn't as huge as being a jazz musician in Whiplash. Like, I did a deep dive. All the reviews I saw is, of course, it's some rando on the internet anecdotally saying, like, I had a teacher that threw a chair. Like, as if that's, like, a justification for this whole fucking thing. And, like, even who knows if that even actually happened. But it's just like, well, I had a jazz teacher was a total fucking asshole. And so, you see, it is how jazz works. And it's like, once again, a name I won't name. A guy we like, a guy you've played with, used to be my teacher when I took saxophone.
Yeah.
He's kind of an asshole. But nowhere near, nowhere fucking near what this guy in this movie is. And, like,
Yeah.
even his, like, a little bit, like, being a little too extra, a little too on people, I was like, man, fuck this. I'm going to quit playing saxophone. Like, I immediately quit. I was like, this sucks. And yeah, like, he wasn't even that bad. I look back on it now, I was like, all right, maybe I shouldn't have been a teenager and taken a couple notes, but yeah. Anyway, yeah, so we're gonna do that. I'm planning on making our resident music expert, Kelin, watch a fucking music movie at the end of each month, and then when we do these episodes, just Kelin and I, we're gonna do a deep dive on the music movie. We could have kept going on Whiplash, but obviously we're doing all the other stuff, and you got to get out of here. So I think that wasn't too shabby for doing an old school episode, which won't be old school anymore. It'll just be what do we want to call these? Like, month in review with Kelin.
There you go. I like it.
Yeah. I'm into it. I like it straightforward.
Yeah.
All right, I'll grow my beard back proper, make some money. Yeah.
I look forward to hearing about it in the next month in review.
And for those at home wondering, like, oh my God, they only talk once a month? We'll talk throughout. It's just, when we record and shit. But
Indeed.
All right, well, you have a good rest of your day, sir, and I'm going to hit the stop record.
Sounds good. We'll see y'all next time.
Bye-bye! Thank you for listening to The Jacob Wayne Show. If you would like to contact us, please write us at thejacobwayneshow@gmail.com. You can find us on Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube. Simply search The Jacob Wayne Show and it should pop right up. Make sure you like and subscribe and leave a review and share this podcast with your friends. Please write us. It helps add content to the show and makes the show even better for you, the listener. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome to the Jacob Wayne Show.